Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. I'm really excited to bring you today's video. If you enjoy my content, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications. Let's get started. The year 1921 was a time when brave hearts embarked on great adventures in the world of exploration. Ada Blackjack was a courageous woman with a strong survival instinct. At the time, there was very little knowledge about dangerous and unknown areas like the Arctic. Ada had the spirit of the explorers of that era, brave and determined. She was part of an expedition preparing to go to Wrangel Island. The team aimed to explore unknown lands on this remote and dark island located in the far north of Russia. This exploration was meant to unveil the mysteries of the Arctic, gather new scientific data, and study the region's nature. Ada Blackjack stood out not only for her survival skills but also for her courage, which caught the attention of other members of the expedition. She had gained experience in whale hunting and learned to survive under harsh conditions while crossing the oceans. One of Ada's prominent qualities was her mental strength as well as her physical one. Although most of the exploration group consisted of men, Ada's determination and resilience impressed and inspired them. The expedition was led by the experienced explorer Valerian Albanov. Albanov had no hesitation in accepting Ada for the journey, as he believed her skills would greatly contribute to the team. However, the island expedition was not going to be easy. Ada had joined a team that knew little about the dangers and challenges of the place they were headed. Wrangel Island was located on the northern borders of Russia, right at the edge of the Arctic region. The Arctic climate was extremely harsh. This region was ruled by numerous icebergs and frozen oceans, providing a very tough environment. The team considered Ada a capable and resilient leader, well prepared for nature's severe conditions. Before setting off, the team prepared supplies and materials that could withstand the harsh conditions for a long time. However, Ada and the other explorers were unaware of a crucial fact. Nature was not fully prepared for any kind of preparation. The team had no idea what they would encounter on these desolate lands open to the ocean. Ada's survival skills might not have been enough to predict the greatest dangers she would face in the wild nature of the area. When the expedition began, Ada moved forward with strong motivation. The Arctic journey was, above all, the first step of an adventure requiring immense courage. Ada knew that by stepping into unknown lands, she would enter a survival battle unlike any she had faced before. The exploration team was not just a group of people making maps and observations. They were a group that would push the boundaries of nature and test humanity's most powerful instincts. The first days were extremely challenging for the team. The weather was bitterly cold, and traveling across the frozen ocean seemed nearly impossible. Ada fought against the harshness of nature every day with her warm clothing and a small hunting supply. When setting up camp at night, the entire team struggled with the effects of the wind, cold, and snow. However, Ada made an effort to keep her morale high no matter what. For her, survival became not just a goal, but an inner battle. As the team moved through the icy waters in search of food, Ada demonstrated her survival skills, overcoming each new challenge. Other members of the team struggled more and more due to the cold weather and harsh conditions. Especially, they faced serious difficulties in obtaining food. The team's morale began to drop, and Ada's leadership qualities became invaluable during these tough times. Even though she herself was struggling, Ada carried out her duties without complaint and encouraged the team. However, Ada's courage was tested more and more with each passing day. The high spirits at the beginning of the journey were gradually replaced with anxiety and uncertainties. The harsh conditions, initially felt as only the effect of the climate, began to create more stress within the team. The cold, hunger, and illness began to threaten the physical and mental health of the team members. Ada had to face these dangers, but she resisted the suggestions of the leaders to seek help and only trusted her own inner strength. However, this journey also came with the feelings of fear and loneliness. At a point when the team considered turning back, Ada Blackjack felt that the survival struggle would last much longer. But she also knew that this journey was only the beginning, and that she would face an even greater challenge ahead. Ada's exploration journey was a great challenge both physically and psychologically, and this challenge had only just begun to present her with the hardest experiences of her life. The journey would become increasingly difficult with each new step, and Ada Blackjack was about to move toward a real fight for survival. At first, Ada Blackjack's expedition began with great excitement and hope. However, as time passed, the harsh Arctic conditions began to deeply affect the team. Ada and the other explorers showed great determination and perseverance as they moved toward their goal, encouraging each other along the way. But the brutal nature of the Arctic quickly began to push their endurance to its limits. As the team continued their journey, the dangers they faced grew larger and larger. The weather conditions became harsher. Snowstorms, strong winds, and the frozen ocean surface made the journey more difficult every day. Ada, as a woman skilled in whale hunting and survival, was sometimes more resilient than the other team members, but with each passing day the fragility of humans in the face of nature's power became more evident. In the beginning, Ada and the other explorers tried to survive by using their supplies carefully and working together. However, over time, these efforts began to fall short. Supplies were running out quickly and food sources were becoming scarcer. Ada, along with the other team members, went hunting, trying to catch a whale or a seal in the frozen sea. But nature was relentlessly challenging them. Slowly, hunger, cold, and malnutrition began to erode the team's morale. Team members began to lose strength and suffer from a loss of morale towards each other. Mental and physical breakdowns occurred one after the other. While Ada clung to her inner strength in the battle for survival, most of the team members were slowly deteriorating. At first, one team member fell ill due to a cold and malnutrition. Although the others tried to help, there were no doctors or medical facilities in the Arctic region. The weather was so harsh that treating the sick was incredibly difficult. Within a few days, the ill explorer passed away. However, illness and hunger did not only bring the first loss. Successive disasters caused massive damage to the team's morale. Soon after, another explorer contracted the same illness and failed to survive. Now, only a few members of the team remained, including Ada. The survivors tried to help each other through their pain, but this effort proved to be insufficient. Ada tried to keep her spirits up after each loss, but she was also fighting psychological challenges. She had to protect her health and seize every opportunity to survive. As time passed, a greater crisis emerged. The team began to face serious difficulties in finding food and supplies. They were trying to survive with limited resources, growing weaker each day. Ada bravely attempted to hunt whales and seals, but the wild animals around them made it impossible for them to survive under such harsh conditions, and finding food became nearly impossible. Many times their tools weren't enough for their survival efforts, with knives and arrows lost in the depths of the ice. All these challenges led to the mental and physical exhaustion of the team members. Ada's biggest challenge was how to keep up with the diminishing morale of the others while maintaining her own inner strength. The weather, hunger, illness, and pessimism intensified day by day, turning Ada's survival instincts into a battle she had to fight with nothing but the strength of a woman. One day, after a heavy storm, most of the remaining team members quickly continued to deteriorate. Ada was now the only one left. A few of the other explorers, unable to withstand it any longer, died. Due to illness and malnutrition, the group was beginning to break apart. Ada had realized just how challenging it was to be alone in such harsh conditions in order to survive. It was now a fight for survival, with no other choice. As Ada remembered the faces of each friend she had lost, she felt emotionally drained. Yet, it was a woman's survival instinct that gave her the greatest strength in the battle against death. Now, all that remained were the bodies. Ada was facing the painful consequences of the efforts made by her fellow explorers to survive and their eventual surrender. The only thing left was the feeling of loneliness, which further sharpened her survival instinct. In this harsh solitude, Ada continued to live every moment, recalling the lost lives on one side, while on the other, she reminded herself of her own will to survive. Ada Blackjack was forced to survive alone. Everything was now up to her. She was just a woman, But this solitude only provided her the opportunity to further develop her survival instincts. Ada Blackjack was now struggling as the last surviving member in the cold, harsh environment of the Arctic. What began as a journey with the other expedition members had turned into a great disaster, and Ada was left with nothing but the bodies of her companions. Initially, being alone brought fear and a sense of helplessness, but over time, this solitude taught her the vital importance of the fight for survival. There were no more friends, no wisdom or sources of morale. Ada was the sole member of a broken camp. At first, Ada was overwhelmed with fear and shock. As she tried to think about what to do, how to proceed, and what steps she needed to take to survive, time was rapidly passing. In that moment, nature had left her with only one thing: her inner survival instinct. For Ada to survive on this isolated island alone, she had to carefully calculate every move. While spending the night on the cliffs, she noticed polar bears and other wild animals roaming around the island. These creatures posed a real threat to a lone survivor. The ruthless laws of nature were making Ada's fight for survival more difficult with each passing day. Each night, Ada had to find shelter in the cliffs. Finding a place to rest between the rocks gave her some sense of security. However, nature never provided her with just shelter. The freezing cold of the poles seeped into Ada's body, reminding her with each passing minute just how hard survival was. The rocks, with their sharp and harsh structures, were only enough to block the cold winds but were not safe enough for her to spend the night. Shivering by the small fire she had made with her own hands, she clung to it. The fire was a mere reflection, a single light of hope. Though it was insufficient for survival, Ada kept lighting it every evening. One day, the weather worsened further. A snowstorm covered the island, and visibility dropped to 0. While Ada was careful not to get lost in the storm, she noticed that the wild animals on the island were becoming more active in their search for food. Polar bears, powerful and experienced hunters, were roaming the island, searching for food. Ada had to be very cautious. If the polar bears saw them as a threat, they could attack quickly and powerfully. Ada tried to observe the bears carefully, understanding how patient and cautious she had to be to outmaneuver them. Ada spent her days watching the movements of the animals, hoping to avoid the major threats of the wild. One day, when the snowstorm eased slightly, she saw a group of seals. This presented an opportunity. This moment would be crucial for her survival. Ada silently followed the animals, waiting for the right moment to hunt. She had nothing but a knife and old hunting tools, the limited instruments a woman struggling for survival in the wilderness could rely on. She had to take a huge risk to hunt a seal. After a tough but successful chase, Ada managed to catch her prey. The seal was large enough to provide her with a meal. However, this was only a short-term victory. Ada needed much more to survive. Finding food was becoming increasingly difficult. Ada knew how carefully she had to use each catch. She wasn't just using the seals for food. She was also developing a hunting strategy. Every piece of meat was vital for sustaining her survival strength. While preparing for the next hunt, her body was weakening and her morale was dropping. Still, Ada's strength, despite everything, had not yet run out. Soon Ada's efforts to find food became difficult once again. Every day she went hunting. The dangers of nature and the freezing cold made things harder. On her way back to camp, she was struck by a chilling thought. If she couldn't find food, survival would become impossible. Survival was a continuous battle. Her body was slowly wearing down, but the will to survive within Ada made her more determined with each passing day. Ada's determination gave her the power to make the most of every moment and seize every opportunity. Each new day became another battle for survival. As she hunted, took shelter among the cliffs, and endured snowstorms, Ada was always taking one more step, surviving just a little bit longer. This struggle for survival was not only a physical test but also a mental endurance challenge. Ada continued to live each day, doing her best to overcome the challenges nature threw at her. And with each passing day, this battle for survival offered her a deeper understanding of the resilience of the human spirit. In her fight for survival, each moment of survival showed her that survival was not just about staying alive, but also about discovering the warrior spirit within. Ada had entered an unrelenting battle with nature, facing its harshest side alone. But each day, every hardship, presented an experience that strengthened her will to survive. At first, Ada's greatest challenge was meeting her basic needs in such a difficult environment. Finding food became an increasingly hard struggle. She had lost the opportunity to hunt with the other expedition members. Now, she had to hunt alone. Dangerous animals like polar bears, seals, and the relentless snowstorms constantly roamed around the island, encroaching upon Ada's living space. She understood how precious finding food was, but she also knew that avoiding these creatures and being cautious around them was a matter of life and death. Ada spent most of her days hunting around the island. One day, unexpectedly, a polar bear came near her, not just as a potential meal but as a significant threat. Her body was filled with fear and tension, but Ada decided to summon all of her mental strength and act coldly. Carefully watching the bear's movements, she seized the moment to act swiftly. When the bear moved at the right time, Ada managed to survive, but just moments earlier, she had been face to face with death. This was Ada's first big test. Calmness, courage, and speed were essential elements of survival. But these qualities alone weren't enough for her to pass this test. Ada had to dig deeper into her strength, spirit, and survival instincts. Not only was Ada fleeing from animals, but she also had to fight against the cold. For someone living in the polar regions, having a warm shelter was one of the most important conditions for survival. Ada used every moment wisely to build a small shelter for herself. The survival skills she had learned over time helped her create a refuge in this harsh environment. Snow and ice were the basic materials she used to build a shelter. By mixing the snow and crafting an ice barrier, she created a space where she could spend the night. This shelter was not just physical, it also became a symbol of Ada's mental strength. The warrior spirit inside her was taking shape between every snowflake and ice piece, reminding her how vital survival was. While continuing her struggle against the cold, Ada kept lighting fires every night. The fire not only warmed her but also gave her the mental strength to endure. As she sat by the fire, she realized how much she was testing the limits of survival each day, battling nature. The tools she used to protect herself were just one part of the battle. Her greatest weapon was the inner strength she had discovered in her fight to survive. Ada's struggle for survival was not just physical, but also a mental battle. As she spent the night by the fire, her body weakened, but her spirit grew stronger. Ada's fight for survival became more complex with each passing day. By deepening her courage and determination, she started to use every new experience as a source of strength. Even in moments when she was mentally and physically exhausted, her determination to survive kept giving her the power to continue. One day, while facing the challenges of hunting seals, Ada's spirit was truly tested. She spent hours trying to hunt seals in the cold sea, growing more tired with each attempt, but she refused to give up. Finally, at the end of a difficult day, she was rewarded with a great victory. She managed to catch her prey. But this wasn't just about catching an animal. It was also a victory over herself. With each hunt, Ada was improving her survival skills, and with each victory over nature's forces, she grew stronger. The battle with polar bears and other wild animals was not just a physical confrontation. Every encounter with nature's harsh face pushed Ada's determination and patience to their limits. As she fought to defend herself against the power of nature, she was also fighting an internal battle. Alone, fighting against death, her spirit grew stronger with each passing day. Each day, her struggle to survive against nature's forces deepened the warrior spirit inside her, offering her an unyielding determination and resolve. While continuing her battle with polar bears, the cold, and loneliness, Ada once again realized how strong her survival instincts were. Pushing her mental and physical limits, she discovered just how resilient her spirit had become. In the struggle for survival, no matter how experienced she became against nature and wild animals, Ada's warrior spirit remained the one guiding force, always showing her the way. Ada Blackjack's struggle for survival had on that vast and cold island where she didn't know which way to go and had no communication with anyone, with no sign of rescue or help. Every day, Ada faced a new battle. The disappearance of the exploration team deepened the feeling of loneliness within Ada, constantly reminding her how precious survival was. With each passing day spent alone, something inside her seemed to break. Yet waking up each morning gave her the strength to keep fighting. But the long period without encountering any human trace brought her to the brink of losing hope. At first, Ada lived each day with the hope of a small miracle. After the disappearance of the other expedition members, one thought consumed Ada. One day, someone would find her and rescue her. Each day, she tried to make the most of her time, holding on to that hope. Ada had initially lived with the dream that a rescue team, a boat, or maybe even a plane would come to find her. That was the possibility of salvation. But as the days passed, the chances of these dreams turning into reality grew more and more distant. Ada heard no outside help, no human voice. The time she spent on the island taught her how painful loneliness could be. The disappearance of her team members marked the beginning of Ada's battle with solitude. To find herself alone on an island, abandoned, had become her greatest fear. Yet, no matter how difficult it was, Ada managed to survive. Every day, though she grew weaker, her will to survive gave her hope. One morning, while sitting in her camp, her eyes landed on an old radio device. The device was broken, but it symbolized hope to her. At that moment, Ada decided to give everything she had to make the device work. For her, this device was the only way to connect with the outside world and to one day be rescued. Mentally exhausted, Ada continued to tinker with the device. For weeks, she tried to repair it. With every successful attempt, she felt one step closer to salvation. If she could get the device working, maybe someone would reach her, maybe someone would help her. However, as time passed, Ada realized how insufficient her attempts to repair the device were. With no electricity, the constant draining of batteries and the device's malfunctioning slowly wore down Ada's hope. Many times she considered giving up. If this device didn't work, if her hope faded, would there be any other way for her to survive? Each day brought more hunger, more cold, more loneliness. But in every one of those days, there was still hope in Ada's heart. To decide to give up was in direct conflict with her decision to survive. Every time Ada thought her will to survive was gone, she found new inner courage. It was clear that not only physical endurance but also mental resilience was necessary. At night, she would retreat into a corner in the darkness, reflecting on her past. She remembered every experience she had lived through, every survival battle, and everything she had accomplished. The journeys she had taken with her team, the memories of how different everything had been. But now, everything had changed. Ada was alone, facing death, not knowing how she would make it to the end of another day. Yet her survival instincts were the only thing keeping her alive, giving her the strength to hold on to life every morning. One day, the broken radio device began to work a little bit again. The weak signal it sent out was a beacon of great hope for Ada. In that moment, she knew nothing would make her give up. She took one more step forward. When Ada received that small signal from the device, she summoned all her strength. Although it seemed like a dead end, as she tried to get more signals from the device, Ada still hoped. This small fragment of a signal was perhaps the last glimmer of hope that kept her alive. Though mentally exhausted, she still had to stand tall physically. Finding food, her body rapidly weakening, and the increasing cold and snow took a growing toll on Ada. However, this physical fatigue did not defeat her mentally. Ada found just enough strength each new day to take one more step. Every moment of survival was a new test, a new trial. In those moments, Ada sometimes decided to make one last effort. Either she would hold on, or completely disappear. But at this point, with the promise she had made to herself to never give up, she moved forward with hope every new day. The desire to survive within Ada was driven by just one thing: hope. That hope was what kept her alive, and nothing. Absolutely. Mentally and physically drained, she never lost hope. In the midst of the Arctic desert, as days and nights passed one after another, Each new day added a little more resolve and resilience to her. Her 2-year survival battle was not only a test of nature's challenges but also a test of how strong and resilient a human being could be. This process became a saga of Ada Blackjack not just surviving, but also demonstrating the immense strength of the human spirit. Ada's rescue came at the beginning of 1923, after 2 years. Ada, who had been growing weaker with each passing day, was perhaps finally about to receive the reward for surviving and holding on for so long. Mentally exhausted, the emptiness and loneliness of spending so much time alone on the island grew deeper each day. Yet, there was a feeling that came to Ada, a sense of hope, a feeling that something was about to change. Every morning, as Ada eagerly awaited the start of a new day, she also prayed for help to come, for someone to find her. In those moments, she gave everything to revive hope, to give herself the will to live once again. And finally, that dream came true. In the early days of 1923, Ada Blackjack's luck changed. One day, while trying to reconnect with the outside world using the old radio device she had found, something changed. Despite being old and broken, the device sent out a signal. At first, Ada thought it might be a mistake, but soon, she noticed a response coming from far away. In that moment, the soul of the lonely woman on the island was fully revived. In a place where everyone had abandoned her, where time and nature's harsh conditions had worn her down, Ada Blackjack finally found a glimmer of hope. She immediately began sending out a distress signal, and this signal became her gateway to the world. As soon as the rescue team received Ada's signal, they sprang into action. After enduring difficult conditions and a long wait, the rescue team succeeded in reaching Wrangel Island. Following Ada's trail, it wasn't easy for them to reach her shelter, as she was the only one left on the island. The place where Ada had stayed was extremely difficult to reach due to the fierce snowstorms and harsh climate conditions. However, after a challenging journey, the team successfully reached Ada. At the end of her 2 years alone on the island, Ada was rescued, weak but alive. When the rescue team first saw Ada, they had a hard time believing she had survived. After battling the cold, hunger, and loneliness for years, the fact that one woman had managed to survive all these hardships left them stunned and full of respect. Though physically weak, Ada Blackjack was incredibly strong mentally. Her determination and willpower to survive in the face of nature's wild forces had kept her going. The leader of the rescue team immediately recognized how extraordinary Ada's survival was. That moment symbolized not only her success but also how humans can withstand the power of nature. When Ada saw the rescue team, she realized that her salvation had finally arrived. Not only was her body exhausted, but her soul was too. But somehow, after this relentless battle a woman fought against nature, her struggle for survival came to an end after these 2 years. As the rescue team took Ada to a warm environment and began her healing process, Ada was weak and frail due to the prolonged loneliness and hunger she had endured on the island. However, what gave her life was not just physical recovery. Within her was an inner strength that had grown alongside the years of isolation. That inner strength was what kept her alive, giving her a chance to fight for a new day every morning and enabling her to resist nature's relentless challenges. Ada Blackjack's survival story reflected the determination, courage, and strength of a woman's fight against nature. This incredible success story made a huge impact when it was heard worldwide. Ada not only survived, but also became a legendary figure in the world of exploration, making her mark in history. Her struggle for survival became a saga that demonstrated how resilient humans could be in the face of nature, and how crucial it was to discover the power within oneself. Ada Blackjack, by pushing the limits of both women and all of humanity, had fully manifested her warrior spirit and survival willpower. After her rescue, Ada Blackjack's life began to attract more attention. Her fight for survival remained not only a personal success but also a universal story of survival that continued to be remembered.